Thank you for listening to another random episode of You Are the One You Seek. Boy, I don't know. I'm struggling a bit to be at a place where I live up to, in my mind, where I see myself, and I obviously that's a no-duh for most people. But, for all of the enlightenment and encouragement I've received through near-death experience stories, through channelings and everything else, like profound moments of peace and a feeling of understanding, I wouldn't trade that for anything. But man, like right now, I just feel empty. I just feel like I need to see something. I'm past the point of faith really doing enough for me to not kind of, I don't know, make me feel a bit rudderless and lost. So I'm ready for some shit to go down, and not negative stuff. I don't want to see more wars escalate. I'm tired of that. I'm just exhausted by the cycle, and I know that this is supposed to be the end all for all the cycles that humanity has faced and all this kind of stuff, and Atlanteans and all kinds of histories on Earth. So it's really like intense and brutal, and we're all holding the weight karmically of all those past lives. So that's part of the reason everything feels so magnified and intense. But we're disconnected enough that we don't have any way to really know that that's what's happening. So there are times where I just get really despondent about, like, why was any of this set up to be this extreme? Why did we need things to be this extreme to grow and to expand our consciousness and blah blah blah? It's stuff that I'm not gonna. I'm sure there is a perfect answer. I'm sure when I'm out of this body I'll understand it perfectly. But just like faith pisses me off. I have a very rocky relationship with faith because I held on to it so dearly and so tightly for most of my life, only to be really betrayed by, those things that I held on to. And so it's really difficult for me to give faith over to anything again. And I have to have faith to believe that I'm this eternal, infinite part of the Creator, and then I'm just having this temporary experience, one of however many I want to have to achieve whatever goals I want to achieve, to expand, I guess, the repertoire of what God and consciousness can do. But again, I just have so many questions that need more direct answers, and that's Pauline Edward took some time and went over my charts a few different times with me, and I'm just astrologically idiotic. I don't really know what I'm doing or looking at or hearing. I like to listen to people talk about it, but I couldn't articulate shit to you about, what the alignments are right now and what's, square and conjunct and trine and what my numbers are in relation to all of that. And I know there's different elements there that I'm conflating probably, but yeah, like she basically showed me that, according to my chart, I need to see it, I need to believe it, I need proof kind of person. Like, I'm not really stoked about the idea of faith. I want stuff to make sense, and I want it to be tangible. So when it's not, and I'm told to just trust, I kind of go crazy, because I feel like if the truth's out there, I'm not too small for the truth. Let me have it. Let me, like, I don't know. I don't know how to describe that beyond just that feeling, and maybe you can relate if you're like me and you want so bad to believe, but you haven't had a firsthand profound experience outside of, maybe like me, something like a dream of a loved one that passed, or some different synchronicities, you might say, were a message but are too, I don't know, just everything's so gray and soupy and hard to define. Like, it could be this or it could be that. We have no idea. And so our mind wants to assign it to something because we find peace and order, and we find peace in categories and understanding things in a box that makes sense to us, because we're a very specific type of intelligence and understanding, which is, the weird part of all of this is like an infinite intelligence being shoved through a very specific filter based on the actual being it's experiencing. So the human filter is a massive, crazy filter. And I don't know how much of that is just specific to Earth and specific to our type of human, because there are a lot of hybrids out there, apparently, according to Bashar, all these different hybrid beings that are part of an agenda to expand the hybrid race, which is human and non-human genetics. This gets into like so much stuff. I'm not really going to go down that rabbit trail because it does sound like it's just weird, because a part of me is like, totally, yes, this makes sense. I would be so open to this information if they came tomorrow and presented like a full presentation on everything, and it, blew my head open just with a rearrangement of my understanding of how the world has played out. I would welcome it so much, because I love being wrong. I friggin' love being wrong when I'm given the truth, when I'm given direct evidence for what the thing actually is. Because I just want to know. I don't care about, of course the human me cares about how I'm seen by others, but on a mostly fundamental level, I really just fucking want the truth. And I don't care about what is in the way, or the gatekeeping, or the arrogance and ego with all of our militarized secrets and all the stuff that our government does to stovepipe information that could change our world for the better into all these insane different secretive programs that nobody can, again, they stovepipe it in a way that like no one can really coherently find that information because of how compartmentalized and secretive it is. So I don't know. I feel like there's got to be some kind of seismic event or geological event or literal spiritual cosmic earth ascension, whatever, earth rift and ascension, or whatever the hell's going to happen. Because I'm struggling here, people. I got to be honest. I don't think it helps anybody in this space to be disingenuous and to put on an act and to act really spiritual and put together, while inside you're feeling like, I just want to know, dude. Like, just tell me. Just show me. I can handle it. Like, how many times I have sat and meditated and asked, both impatiently and patiently, with gratitude and with urgency, would you just show me a little something? Like mantis beings, grays, Pleiadians, Essassani, whoever. I would like to see proof. Show me. I know I'm supposed to get scared and freaked out or whatever, but like, I want to see you. And I feel like I'm putting it out there, but it's not coming back. So I have to accept that's not on my path. Either A, B, that, it is on my path and that's why I'm interested in it, but it's not the right timing. Or C, I am completely fucking crazy and none of this is real and I'm just, imagining it. But I don't really believe that that's the case, given how much weird stuff is going on. If you've been tracking the attempts for disclosure from our government and how much they have basically admitted through being secretive and denying access to things that were supposed to be available for, congressional hearings, and, sharing information in a skiff, which is, don't ask me to remember that acronym. It's just some top secret little meeting where you show files that are like one-time view only kind of vibe and discuss it there, where there's no cameras or audience, basically. So there's been all these weird like shutdowns of skiffs that were supposed to happen with people who had firsthand information or experience. And we even had a testimony, a couple years back now, it's been a while, where military, former and current military, discussed sightings that they had and encounters they had in their jets and on aircraft carriers and stuff like that. So I don't feel like it's improbable that there are other intelligences out there that are much more sophisticated than us, or that operate on a different frequency that we're not able to interact with, or whatever it is. But it still feels like sci-fi. It still feels like X-Files, and I'm just a little kid wanting to believe in, aliens and magic. And I've had some real beautiful moments of wonderment in the last few years, just believing with all my heart that is true, that there is an infinite expanse of, like, the universe is this giant canvas with an infinite amount of paint and shades of color, and we're just like all creating this insane tapestry that seems maybe disconnected and random and chaotic, but at the end of the whole thing, it'll form this beautiful interwoven experience that will, I don't know, I guess expand us in some way that was impossible without having these experiences, which that just makes sense on kind of a practical understanding level. Like, hey, if you don't do anything, you're not going to have all these experiences and takeaways from it. Whereas, when you actually do the thing, it's just like I talk about when you are doing skydiving or something. You don't really get the experience from sitting in a class and learning all the mechanics and all the safety stuff, and you know in and out exactly what you're supposed to do as a skydiver. Like, yeah, you've learned a fundamental part of it, but you're missing the big chunk if you don't actually jump out of the plane or jump off the cliff or whatever, or the bridge. So, for me, I need to put my hands on it. I need to feel it. I need to believe in it. And faith just feels like it feels like it's beneath me, if I'm being honest. And that's incredibly arrogant, I think. But maybe not. It's just the cynical side of me that sees suffering every day and feels my own suffering and pain with my body and all these weird things that are going on that I can't figure out, and just the horrors in the world that are escalating. And there's just a fear that maybe things don't flip towards the positive, and I'm trying not to give that fear energy, but it's just the human part of me, dude. Like, we're all human. We all have a survivalistic part in us that comes out when we feel like something bad's about to happen and we should go somewhere or do something. So I've been kind of like, I don't know, I've been a little bit on edge extra lately. I'm usually always an on edge type of person, but lately it's been escalated just because of world events and God, I wish I could not pay attention to what the Trump administration's doing and what is happening around the world in various war zones and other humanitarian conflicts and natural disasters. But I keep waiting for the sign that the big thing is coming or is happening, or really I'm just looking for more conclusive videos and information about firsthand encounters with UFOs, because allegedly, according to Bashar, that's supposed to pick up significantly next year, leading to what he claims is open contact in 2027. Now that is going to be, there's a part of me that's like, am I even going to be alive by then? I don't know. I have this weird, constant feeling that I'm going to die, young and leave my family in kind of a shitty situation, but I know that they'll be fine. Like, they're all incredible people, and I have such a need to control things that, like, I have fear of, well, if I'm gone, then what happens if something bad happens to them? It's my fault because I didn't do X, Y, and Z to take care of myself to be able to live longer or whatever thing. You wouldn't believe the kind of pressure I friggin' put on myself for every little thing, and then it just paralyzes me and I do nothing. I don't do nothing, but I do very little compared to what a lot of people do when they're kind of backs against the wall and they're like, all right, I gotta show up and start getting stuff done. I'm just kind of like, I don't really fucking care. I just want to live, dude. I want to have a peaceful day where I don't have some big agenda and all these plans and all these things I got to do, where I'm driving a crazy ass commute with people who are just constantly looking for, I don't know, death or whatever they're doing. I'm not sure, but it's so difficult for me to see where I want to go and then try and live in this moment right now and be present for it, because I have to be in the middle of the things that I really do not enjoy. And that's kind of the curse of, like, all this knowledge I've taken on is, and I'm using all these negative terms like curse and blah blah blah. That's because I'm still dealing with many years of just baked in cynicism and picking things apart. So, but I'm trying to learn how to apply the knowledge of what I'm learning from Bashar and the formula, because that feels like one of the more easy concepts to grab onto if you're just looking for something simple your brain can grab that's like a blueprint for doing life a little better, or a little more, not even a little more, it's supposed to be absolutely transformational. But I don't know how to do it in the situations I'm in on a smaller scale. Like, it really needs to be moment by moment stuff, what gives you the highest excitement that you can act on in each moment, and following it through to its conclusion until no longer serves you, and move on to the next highest excitement. And obviously you use your discernment if you're doing these things and it's causing a wake of destruction, or you're intruding on someone else's free will, then you're not doing it in a way that's beneficial for everyone, which is possible, apparently, allegedly. So, but there are a lot of things that I'm living right now that were my highest excitement to reach this point, to be able to not be in such a grind with work and with my marriage and everything else. But, stuff always comes back around. There's always issues that crop up. Like, life's always going to throw challenges at you because it's trying to push you towards whatever objective, I guess, you set out to move towards. And, I don't know. I'm feeling a bit spun out and disconnected from that center point, that neutral point of being able to observe instead of needing to criticize and put everything into a box, and to understand it in some way that's based on beliefs and ideas that I've built up from most likely erroneous sources or ideas or concepts. So many of the beliefs and ideas that we carry were just something we grabbed onto real quick because it gave us comfort, and we never questioned it again. And it's amazing when you start to unpack beliefs and ideas that you just grabbed onto because they sounded good at the time, and you just built a whole house of cards on top of that, And I never cried so much in my life as when I basically discovered NDEs, and that whole period of about 6 to 9 months where I was going from atheism to having what felt like this major revelation. I cried so much, and I found it really profound that Bashar said that our tears are actually containing the chemical constituents of beliefs that no longer serve us, like basically breaking down. Like, the body stores your beliefs and ideas, and there's a chemical constituent in your tears that are a way for the body to release those components. And I thought that was pretty wild, but also felt very true. Like, it's one of those things on its face you could say that sounds like, some crazy garbage internet junk somebody came up with, but I feel like I've lived that. That was what really stuck with me, was just how much I was able to get in touch too with a part of me that kind of felt like it had died, because I was just so cynical and dead from the world, from, again, being sick all the time, from having constant dysfunction with my wife, our relationship, not being the father that I wanted to be to my children. And I'm still not really both of those things, but I've made a lot of strides, and I've also seen a lot of change from my wife. But, we've also have come to so many different conclusions than we did when we were this young Christian couple about life and about marriage and about all these different things, that we are kind of in this weird space of like, what's next? Now what? We both don't have jobs. We got kids who are in high school, and we can't really just move on a whim without something like really, really big time to make it a selling point for them. Because, they've been here their whole life. And my oldest is a senior, and I'm not about to throw them into like a situation where the last year of high school they got to move with us to wherever, we thought there was an opportunity, unless it's something like 6-figure job or like just something obviously right for us. I don't know. And I feel like a lot of times with life, it's always the stuff you wouldn't think is the right choice that leads to the right thing. And so I don't know if a calamity has to happen first for us to like be pushed this direction. I hope not. I'd rather just be an organic, smooth type of transition, but wouldn't we all? And doesn't life sometimes just slap us in the face with an old dead fish? So, and I should have apologized in the beginning. I shouldn't apologize. Let me just let you know, the background noise you're hearing is the quiet white noise of my air conditioning system, because I'm usually fighting it when I'm up here recording because it's so hot, and I got to wait for it to get cold, turn it off, and then try and record before it gets hot again. But that's just one of the stresses of this for me that makes it not fun, and I don't feel like I'm really being myself. So I don't think most people care about a little background AC. Am I right? It's just some like ground floor noise if you're an audio person. That's probably the wrong term. I haven't done audio school in like 25 years, so cut me some slack, please. Anyway, so this is a very not spiritual podcast, but I think the irony is we're our most spiritual when we're just ourselves, when we're just being raw and honest. I hear Yeshua and Bashar and a lot of people really hone in on that the world doesn't need us to be, and Pauline has echoed this to me as well, and I loved it, that the world doesn't need gurus and teachers and experts. It needs people who have lived experience and share it, but they're not doing it in a way that is to lord their knowledge or hold some sort of authority or sway. It's about a mutual exchange that's beneficial, but ultimately, finding it within yourself, going within and trusting that you have the answers that you need for your path, and it doesn't have to be this constant game of validation from others. And I don't know. I it's hard for me to imagine living in a scenario in a human-like body where I'm not seeking others' approval and I'm truly just like living in synchronicity, where each moment I am moving towards the thing that gives me the highest excitement, and I'm not feeling guilt about it. Like, you're not supposed to do this. You're supposed to be following some rigid program or working a job you hate like the rest of us. And there's all these things in society that pull you in to make you think that you have to be like this or else you're a failure as a human. And when you look at where that's coming from, it's a construct. It's a human construct telling you that. It's something we've devised, a system we came up with, not God or some being from on high. It's us who came up with these systems, and so they're completely changeable. We just act like they've been enshrined by our Lord. So now, this is the way to live. This is the way to be. This is what makes you worth having food and shelter and a home. If you're not producing a product or generating shareholder value, then you deserve to struggle and barely get by and have no time really for yourself or to learn about the world around you or what's happening in your local government or any of that kind of stuff. So it's hard for me not to look at the entire thing and just go, what the actual fuck is this about? Like, I know there's an answer and I know it's going to make sense, but I really need something, please, for the love. It's so baffling to me right now. And I'm so ready for it to be something, just smacking me right in the face. Like, you are part of the reason it's like this, David. Not from this life necessarily, but from many past lives where you engaged in aggression and domination on this earth. And you had to feel it from the other side. So these lives in the last several incarnations, however many, have been experiencing the other side of that, of being the victim, of being cut down and called out and crucified, if you will, all the time for standing up for your beliefs, and and not in some like savior type of way. It's just, I guess the whole game is that those of us that are called light workers, allegedly, got involved in conflict. We were here originally just playing around, having a great time, and then something showed up. It started just taking over and blowing shit up, and we freaked out and didn't know what to do because we didn't think that was possible. And so then we had to figure out, okay, I guess we need to defend this place. And so we engaged in the war and became just as aggressive, violent, and controlling, and kind of became the things they were. And this is also this vague thing I've heard from Bashar, from Yeshua. I have no real distinction on what actually happened here. It's just kind of this vague story about, all right, we were these human angels, we were having this beautiful Garden of Eden experience, and then something came, which the Bible, of course, represents in its own way, but that's apparently just a way the legend was passed down, but it's really, this much more profound, deep thing involving a whole other species that was negatively oriented. And I have a lot of questions about all that, but I guess it set up this whole stage to have this super dynamic experience on Earth that you can't really have in a lot of other places. So the destruction and chaos served a purpose. It wasn't fun or good in a lot of ways, obviously. Just like war and all these things are terrible here, but Bashar has said this a lot, that when people have asked why are children being killed in horrible conditions in Gaza or in these African countries or South American countries that were often, there's American involvement and sanctions and all kinds of crap. Like, why is that happening? And Bashar said, so that when you see it, you will react in a way to make decisions to live in a world that no longer operates in that manner, that it causes a backlash and makes you want to change things. Because if that stuff doesn't happen, you won't be, I guess, motivated to change it when it needs to change. So, but geez, the people who are in charge to make it change are the ones who keep making it worse. So we have to do something much different, right? Something much, much different. And I'm not trying to be subversive and call for a revolution, but we need a friggin' revolution. And I'm trying to be a little subversive. Because what we're doing right now is killing us. Like literally in every way, it's killing us. The planet, our future is just being robbed. And I just don't believe that reality is that pointless. Because right now, if you look at this from, where I was a few years back as an atheist, this all looks pretty cruel and pointless from that perspective. If you can't see anything beyond this, I don't know. I don't know how I would move through that in a way that's not just deeply suicidal. And I don't, again, that feels kind of like reductive, because when I was an atheist, I had accepted it, and I said, I'm fine with it just being a random experiment or a random cosmic accident, and life is what I make it. Yeah, that's true. But and ultimately, I think I was onto something with that. But then I felt a little empty. I knew that was probably coming, but I was like, well, but really, this just happened on accident? Like, really? So then the floodgates opened, and the tears and the revelation. But I don't want to be a preacher. I don't want to be a teacher. I want to be someone who relates to other people and connections that are authentic, and to be able to put forward the love that I have in my heart for humanity. But I also have so much rage and contempt. It's so hard to deal with. And I have to keep reevaluating that every single day when I feel that rage and contempt for just malicious acts of war and all these other aggressions and starving people and poisoning the environment, poisoning all of us with all these terrible chemicals that these people knew were bad. It's so hard for me to let go and forgive that until it's fixed, It's like, yes, I realize you're playing a part, but like, this is insane. Why we could have a beautiful and incredible world to live on that's regenerative and non-polluted and abundant for everybody, resource-wise, abundant housing and living situations. There's no reason not to. We've proven we have abundance. It's just we've decided to allow it to funnel to all the wrong people, or to allow it to funnel anywhere. It should all be. I'm a big fat commie. I'm a socialist. I'm a Jesus Christ communist, because really the irony is I live in the deep South, and people here all have been worked up into a lather about everything the left does is Marxist, communist, fascist, blah blah blah. And then I'm like asking my parents and other Christians, so where in the Bible did Jesus endorse the model for capitalism? Could you point me to that verse? And where did he say to give all you have, sell all you have, and give to the poor? And all these other lessons about turning the other cheek and basically living a life of humility where all you do is give to others, and you don't live in fear with guns loaded and stacking money and exploiting people. It's so backwards from the messaging of we follow Christ, but then Christ didn't ever teach us to build a system like this or anything even remotely close to it. And all the systems that do function like this get quickly turned over and toppled. If you follow American military geopolitics, if that's a real category, there's some pretty troubling patterns with countries basically having civil wars and then communism winning out and people actually getting needs met, and then America quickly swoops in and installs a dictator, and things go to much worse very quickly. But we've been trained to believe that all socialism and communism leads to exactly what capitalism is leading to right now in this country. So, and the world, frankly, that does capitalism. So yes, capitalism does not make any sense to me. People think that's radical. I think it's radical to make a system like that and say this is like the only way we can do it. We're seeing the implications of that every day, and it's literally killing us, and we're still defending it. We've been so conditioned, especially the generations before mine. So conditioned. I mean, mine too, but I have been thankful enough to have a lot of information to help me break out of that, where my parents' generation, they're still steeped in this broad acceptance of the way things are as like some enshrined system that is, just the only way humans can do it without total chaos and lawlessness. It's like, okay, how do we get this far then? Anyway, I know I'm, as usual lately, I'm just sort of freewheeling it from thought to thought, but there's a through line here, which is just that I'm trying to be real and honest and not trying to give you some, fluffed up version of like, just close your eyes and say some really nice things to yourself. Like, yeah, those are really good things to do and you should do that. But doing anything on a routine or a program or because someone else is telling you that that's the right way isn't just another version of a religion or a cult or whatever. It's more programming. So if you take away from me anything that's systematic or, dogmatic or whatever, then throw it away, because that's not what you're here for. You're here to wake up to yourself. You're here to find out what makes you tick, what makes you excited, what brings you love and joy. Because when you find things that enlighten you, like bringing light, I don't know, is that bringing light from within or it coming? Anyway, I don't do words well. When you enlighten yourself, you are drawn to more positive, love-centered things. Like, people get this idea when they hear the formula, I think, that acting on your highest excitement might be, oh, what if my highest excitement is to kill somebody? And it's like, well, obviously there's a lot of other things going on there that need to be addressed first. But that's a tricky thing, like that's hard to like just make anything a blanket, one size fits all. But generally it really does work, I think, for the vast majority of people to apply this idea of like, why should I do things in any moment that are prescribed for me when they do not bring me excitement or give me joy? Why? Just because someone else said, well, it's the right thing to do. And you can make arguments that are, I think, valid for, there are disciplines you have to take on in life sometimes that suck at first, and then by the time you finish it, you're so glad you did it, right? But you still are excited about doing the thing. You just have a lot of reluctance at the beginning, maybe at some of the discomfort or the uphill learning curve or whatever it is. But I don't know. The truth is, I don't know anything. I got this podcast right here where I'm trying to give all this great advice and lead people to their higher self and to their own truth. But like, dude, I don't know really anything. I'm just as lost as you are. And maybe you're not. Maybe you have had more experiences. Somebody who's listening, you may have had an NDE where you were in the light, where you were with your soul family or out of your body and feeling just the bliss of that moment. I've heard enough regular people talk about having this happen to them. Terry Crews was a football player, early in his life. If you don't know who Terry Crews is, then I want you to politely shame yourself and then do a little internet search on Terry Crews. Just fantastic human being, so positive, so inspiring. But he got hit really hard in a game where he was actually the linebacker delivering the hit, but he got the brunt of it, and he said he was out of his body for, a good little bit, and he said he was floating above his body just in the middle of the stadium, and he just said he felt like he was basically already almost home. Like, he just felt bliss, he felt warm, cozy, and I've heard a lot of other people have similar experiences when they almost died, and I just don't believe that that's some random physiological brain wiring like thing happening that, I think the cynical scientific community has said in the past. But now there's just too many cases of NDEs that are so similar, and people having experiences, again, where they can recall details that were happening when they had no brain activity and their heart had stopped, stuff that they should have no ability to witness or understand or be able to relay back to the people that they saw doing the things, like doctors doing surgery on them, and they could recall the different steps they were taking and all these kinds of details that no person would have any business remembering when they're dead. So anyway, that alone should be enough to give me the fuel I need. But God, I just need I need more. I am human, and I need it to like slap me in the face. I need to feel it, dude. So yeah, if you're like me, I don't know. Hopefully we hang in there until we get this thing that is irrefutable, Bashar talks about sharing a hologram with us that gives the entire history of Earth as it really happened, as it was recorded objectively. That sounds unbelievable to me, but God, if that happened, I would make that my whole life probably, is like helping, facilitate like a museum of different experiences of witnessing what happened on Earth because it's like this holographic thing. I don't know how you would do that, but I'd be so excited to finally find out what happened here. There'd probably be a lot of horrors that would be difficult to take on, but I would feel so much more complete in my understanding of what is going on, what this is all about. Anyway, I hope that's coming. I hope we're moving towards some big moment of revelation, but again, man, I'm a cynic. I need to feel it in my blood. Put it in my belly. Anyway, I love all of you. I'm so thankful for any of you who listen to this and who resonate with my particular vibe. It's a weird one. I don't think I've met too many other people like me out there. Not as a brag at all, actually. It's kind of like, damn, this is a bummer, dude. Where are my people at? But I'm a lot. I'm a lot to take on. I'm very, very. I mean, you hear it on the podcast. I have a lot of thoughts. They come out a mile a minute, and it can be overwhelming and smothering for people, and I fully get that. And it's something I really want to work on because I don't need to impose my views on someone else. So I become much more conscientious of that. I ask a lot of times, like, am I saying too much here? Because I really don't want to be preaching at you about anything. And they're like, no, I want to talk about this. But if I get even the vibe at all that they're uncomfortable, I back way off. I don't push things. I'm very, very perceptive on, body language and all that when I'm talking to somebody, because I don't like it when people don't pick up on my clear cues that, like, okay, I'm trying to back up and I'm not making eye contact anymore, and, like, stuff like that. Just, anyway, I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. Oh, hey, it's 6:16 on 6:16. I guess that's a fun synchronicity, right? See, these are the little dorky things I have to do to make myself feel like something good is happening. Well, okie dokie, I think I'm going to go ahead and just stop flapping my yapper. Thank you for being my de facto therapy diary journal audience. That's what this really is. It's just me being raw and honest. It might as well consider it, I guess, a verbal diary. What's that called? A viary? I don't like it. Anyway, much love to you all. Thank you for listening. I will hopefully be back soon, and with hopefully a little more pep in my step, something more positive to add to the conversation. I think I've still tried to sprinkle in some nuggets of positivity in this, but there's just, I just want to be raw and honest. I'm struggling, and I think so are a good chunk of us, because no one likes to see a wall of water coming at them and just hope that at the last minute something's going to break that wall, and save everyone. Because right now we got like a bunch of different walls of water coming at us, and it can be really overwhelming when you start to understand the magnitude of just how many things are on the precipice of completely unrecoverable, and I'm not going to go down a list because there's no need to stoke those fears in people like me who are prone to, like, well, let me think about every single bad thing that can happen and lay it all out in my mind so I'm not surprised by anything, and it's like, all right, just let it happen, dude. Just try and let it happen. Make the best of it. If it's a total shit show, so what? You can't control it as a human being. Trust you're controlling this experience in a way that makes a lot more sense from a different perspective, from a higher understanding, or give up, because you don't have a lot of other choices really. And so I keep having to choose, because I don't want to give up. I keep having to choose that I got to keep pushing forward. As much as I want to stop, as much as I want to go home so bad, I know I can't prematurely. However, that's another subject for another time about ethical suicide and allowing people who are in terminal conditions with no hope of anything to repair them, or just in severe chronic pain, and they just would like to mercifully die. I think that's every person's right to make that call. I think there should be a process so that it's ethically done, like I said. But that's another topic for another time. I personally would like to have that as an option for myself. If things don't change by the time I get a few decades older, I don't see my body being in a place that's going to be comfortable enough for me to want to keep living in it. And it's not me being depressed and sad. It's just the truth. It's just, it already hurts like shit and I'm 42. Like the thought of 10 more years in this body seems torturous and inhumane, but I'm also open to healing and paths to help me. But I've had a lot of weird dead ends there and just experiences with doctors that went nowhere, and some that were really positive and then got really negative because stuff with them. Anyway, yeah, it's life's a friggin' weird roller coaster, and I'm just gonna have to trust it makes sense at the end. I think I've said all this like 3 different times throughout this podcast, but I like to repeat myself. 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 All right, I'm shutting the F up. I love you all so much. Goodbye.